because there's lots of obstacles that we all face, men and women, but it's not the external misogyny, but the internal misogyny. And by that, I mean, we all have to recognize that we were all raised with certain societal norms and in a culture that definitely has at least historically had double standard expectations for men and women.
In honor of International Women's Day, I'm excited to host a series of interviews with the incredible people of PPI. Through these conversations, we aim to share their inspiring journeys and recognize the significant contributions they make to our organization and the industry. So join us as we celebrate their stories and the impact they have on PPI. I'm here with Barb Layton, our Vice President and Chief Compliance and Privacy Officer. Barb, thank you for joining me today.
Oh, thanks for having me, Kathy.
We're going to go way back.
Okay.
Well, maybe not too far back. Where were you born and raised, and what career did you think you wanted to have when you were growing up?
Well, I grew up I was born in Galt, which is, of course, now part of Cambridge in Southern Ontario. And if you're from there, you're still from Galt, even though that amalgamation happened when I was about 6 years old. I thought that it would be really cool to be an Avon lady when I was a little girl.
Oh, Avon.
Yeah, and I'll tell you why. My mom liked those products, and someone would come to the house, and she had this sample kit that she would open up, and it reminded me of my older brother's chemistry set, which I was not allowed to touch. So I thought this was the closest I was going to get to a STEM career would be to become an Avon lady.
Very good. My goodness. And I don't know how many people remember Avon, but I sure do. Yeah. So it's a big deal. You know, you've got a busy life. And if I recall, you foster dogs.
Yes.
Or have.
Yep.
And I know you love travel. You have a really big portfolio at PPI, though, from the perspective of protecting our advisors and the corporation. Mm-hmm. How do you find balance in your life?
Well, a couple of things. I used to be, and I don't think this is terribly uncommon for all women, and I say used to be, I have awareness of it, but it still creeps in from time to time. This constant, overwhelming sense of guilt. Whatever I'm working on, I'm worried about what I'm not working on, both in my personal and professional life. So, coming to a place where you accept the fact that you can't be all things to all people at all times. And one thing that really resonated with me in about the last year, I've read a lot about, instead of calling it work-life balance, calling it work-life harmony.
Yeah.
And I also really buy into the whole mindfulness thing. I think we did a session, a corporate session a few years ago where it was brought in, and I thought, oh, this is woo-woo, this isn't me. And boy, oh boy, I bought into it big time.
Yeah.
Yoga is a big part of my life, and mindfulness is part of yoga.
Yeah.
So I find that if instead of thinking I have to be all these different things, I'm sitting on all of these different teeter-totters, and if I'm at the bottom and I jump off to get on another one, that poor person comes crashing to the ground and cracks their tailbone.
Right.
Instead of thinking of myself that way, and that's when I think of balance, what I think of is that teeter-totter. If I instead think, I'm just one person, I'm one whole person, I'm not multiple different people. I'm not work Barb and wife Barb and mom Barb and yoga Barb and hiking Barb and dog mom Barb.
Yeah.
I'm one person. As long as my values are aligned, I'm bringing the same best version of myself to everything that I do. And I'm focused on whatever I'm doing in the moment. Yeah. It's almost ironic and paradoxical, because if I let go of that and just focus on what I'm doing, and I'm not worrying about everything else and carrying the heavy weight of that mind clutter, then I actually see opportunities to pivot fluidly between the different things. Yeah. So it's more of a philosophical shift, I guess it's been for me, than anything. But it's working if I manage to catch myself and remind myself to stay on that track.
Well, you certainly bring a lot to your team every day. You've built a great team at PPI, especially over the last year. And you have big responsibilities. So in all aspects of your life, we all have overcome different obstacles. I mean, you went to law school, you have a law degree.
Yep.
You've built a career in compliance, advisor. What's been the biggest obstacle that you've had to overcome thus far?
In my career specifically, or in
Your
just in
career
life
or
in general? Well, this is going to sound like a bit of a weird one, and you may not have heard this from any others, but I had a big epiphany around 4 years ago when my mom passed away. And a bunch of things became crystal clear for me. And one of them is, because there's lots of obstacles that we all face, men and women, but it's not the external misogyny, but the internal misogyny. And by that, I mean, we all have to recognize that we were all raised in with certain societal norms and in a culture that definitely has, at least historically, had double standard expectations for men and women.
Yeah.
And if we're kidding ourselves, if we don't think, even though we intellectually know it's wrong, that we aren't subjected to it. And any of us who have ever done any unbiased consciousness training, right? We know that, or what do they call it? Unconscious bias training. Yeah. We know that even though we know it's wrong to think certain ways, that it's ingrained in us, right?
Yeah.
So being mindful of that and being aware of it, and making sure that doesn't translate into judging myself too harshly, other women too harshly, holding them to standards that I wouldn't hold everybody else to.
Yeah.
It's kind of, I guess, fancy way of saying getting out of my own way.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And getting out of other women's way.
It's funny you say that. We were chatting with somebody else and they said the same thing. The biggest obstacle is themselves.
Right.
So, I think there's an underlying challenge that we all have to overcome, most definitely. You've had a lot of role models. Mm-hmm. You haven't built the career that you have or built the life that you have without different role models. Which one stands out most for you at this point in your life?
Right now, and in light of everything else I've talked about, there's so many I could talk about. And having been involved in International Women's Day in the past, I've researched lots of cool women that nobody knows about and tried to cast light on their accomplishments. And then there's the people in my personal life, present company very much included. But I'm going to pick one in light of everything else I've been talking about. And it's probably going to surprise you, Kathy, but it's Tina Turner.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And the reason is, did you ever see the movie, What's Love Got to Do with It?
Yes.
It was out in the early 90s.
Yes.
It was her biography.
Yes, her story.
It's the opening. There's two things in the opening of that movie that really, really resonated with me, and that kind of informed all the other stuff I've been trying to do personally. One is she's a devout, or was, she's since passed away, a devout Buddhist, and she talks about using adversity as your superpower. So there's some Buddhist saying about the lotus flower grows the most beautiful out of the, I'm butchering it by paraphrasing, out of the deepest mud. Yeah. So the worse your circumstances, the more you can turn adversity into your superpower and,
love it.
Kind of go supernova. And it opens, if you remember the movie, the opening scene is, she's singing in her church choir when she's a little girl in the deep South. Yeah. She's the only child. It's This Little Light of Mine. Yeah. And she is belting it out louder than everyone else. And she is dancing a little too, grooving a little too much for the pastors' liking. And they kick her out. Yeah. They kick her out. Yeah. So she dances and sings her way out of the church. She doesn't stop what she's doing. She just removes herself from that environment. Yeah. And I just absolutely love that.
Love it.
Yeah. I just love that. Yeah.
That's fantastic. And a great role model for so many reasons that we can't even delve into here today. Yeah. A lot of young people starting their careers. Yeah. What advice would you give a young person starting their career today?
I'm gonna channel Tina. Let your light shine. Don't make yourself small in response to other people kind of giving you the message that you don't belong. Don't make yourself small to make other people feel comfortable.
That's great advice.
Be confident in yourself. Share your ideas. Yeah. They're just as good as anyone else's. Not everything's going to work, but just go out there and go for it and dance and sing and shine your light and encourage others to do the same.
Oh, that's great advice. So what's your legacy going to be? What do you want to be most remembered for? You'll be remembered for a lot of things.
Hopefully a few good ones.
Most remembered.
I loved, when I was flying home to Cambridge, to Galt, from Halifax, where I currently live in 2020 when my mom was dying. Got there with 3 hours to spare. I watched the Mr. Rogers movie
Oh, yeah.
on the plane to try to calm myself. And
Sure.
And my son and I watched it. And one of the things he talks about in the movie is whenever things are going poorly, look for the helpers. Don't, like he used to, his mother watching the news. It upset him when he was a child watching the news and war and all like
Yeah.
terrible things happening. And she said, don't worry about what's going wrong. Just look for the helpers. So that really resonated with me. And I hope my legacy will be that I was one of the helpers.
Well, certainly over the number of years that I've known you, and for the time that you've been working at PPI, you've been a huge help. And back to one of your prior comments about researching and learning more about different women, it was you who really taught me about Laura Secord. So
Laura Secord.
Laura Secord. So thank you for that. And Barb, thank you for sharing your story with us today.
Well, thank you for having me, Kathy. And thank you for being such an awesome role model and creating safe space for women.
You're welcome.